Welcome to the official Heisman Trophy Podcast.
Hello, Chuck Conrad with a kickoff. Roy has a strong leg, hitting over him. Sanders takes it 1 yard deep to the end zone. Up the middle, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, he's at the 40, he's at 45, 50, 45, 40, 41, 20, 50, 10, 5, touchdown, Cowboys. Like last year, the same.
And the winner is...
Here's your host, Chris Houston.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the official Heisman Trophy Podcast. As I sit here, Heisman Trophy ballots have gone out to the 928 Heisman electors. Very exciting times. This coming up Monday, we will name the 4 Heisman Trophy finalists for 2023, and that will kick off Heisman Week. We're going to change things up a little bit this week. Instead of doing our usual Heisman roundup, we're going to go right into our interview with 1992 Heisman Trophy winner Gino Torretta. Torretta became the second Miami quarterback to win the Heisman while leading his team to an undefeated regular season. They had 29 straight wins at the time of his Heisman victory. He entered 1992 as one of the favorites and did not disappoint. Torretta threw for 3,070 yards and 19 touchdowns. He beat out 2 really good running backs, Marshall Faulk of San Diego State and Garrison Hurst of Georgia. He finished his Miami career with 11 school passing records, including most career attempts, completions, yards, total offense, longest pass, 99 yards, which was also an NCAA record, and he has the record for most passing yards in a game, 485 versus San Diego State when he was just a redshirt freshman. Torretta has gone on to a career as a color commentator for collegiate and professional football games, and he's very up-to-date and informed on college football, and he recently testified before Congress, and we're going to touch on those things as well. All right, Gino Torretta, 1992 Heisman Trophy winner out of Miami. Thanks for coming on the official Heisman Trophy Podcast.
The official. That's you,
right.
Chris.
Congratulations on getting your jersey retired down in Miami at the Louisville game. First, what took them so long? And second, what was that ceremony like?
First off, I'm not in charge, so I'm not in that realm of why it took that long, but it happened, so that's good. The ceremony was awesome. We did it at halftime. A bunch of my old teammates, the university made T-shirts, with my name and number on it. Had a bunch of teammates there. My wife, daughter, some friends, other family members were there, and got to make a quick speech and take some pictures and just spend some time. I had a little reception on Friday night where I got to see some other teammates as well, and it was just a great weekend to be able to kind of relive the glory days for us.
That's great. What a great honor. Well, you've been associated with Miami for so long. I think some people forget your roots. You grew up in Panola, California, in the Bay Area. I want to know what drew you to football, and how did you get your start as a quarterback?
Well, how I got my start is I had 3 older brothers. 2 were 6 years older than me. My oldest brother's 9 years older than me, and there was a lot of times of being dragged out to a field in the summer, to our high school field, and stand here, catch the ball, and throw it back.
Yeah.
So,
the younger brother, that's the fate of the younger brother.
That's where I learned how to catch. My hands hurt, and then I learned how to. I wasn't throwing the small Pop Warner balls. It was whatever they were using in high school. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of that. And I played all sports really growing up. Played basketball, baseball, football. I might have had more talent, natural talent in baseball, but all of my, I guess, additional extra time, if you will, outside of when we were playing actual games in a season for any of those sports, is I spent with football. Just getting prepared in the summer, kind of after, usually July 4th was kind of the end of the baseball season, city leagues and all-stars and all that stuff. And then it just was straight into football.
Yeah.
And then I guess quarterback, let's see, my first year playing in 6th grade, I played quarterback. Had a real good season. Then I didn't want to play football in 7th grade because my friend was going to Tahoe on a 2-week vacation and it cut into 2-a-days. So I skipped out on football in 7th. And then 8th grade, I played quarterback. I believe I lined up at tight end. I believe I also lined up at defensive tackle and at fullback. And I can say, after getting my hand sandwiched once between two helmets as a defensive, I was a dominant defensive tackle. Same mold as like Warren Sapp or one of those guys, you know. After getting my hands smashed between two helmets, I'm like, I do not want to do this. I did not like that. I don't mind people hitting me, but that other side. So I stuck to the quarterback side, but then.
Coach, I want to play quarterback now, please.
The bad thing not bad thing. So played quarterback freshman year. I went to Salesian High School, which was a different high school, and then transferred back to Pinole, which was right close to my house. Played JV my sophomore year. My junior year, I split time at quarterback and then played wide receiver. So I got a little dose of figuring out, the offenses from a different position. So I had, I guess, tried all of the positions, and the quarterback one seemed to fit me the best, where I might have a future.
Right. Well, I think you chose correctly. Your brother Jeff was at Miami as a quarterback and was the roommate of Vinny Testaverde when he won the Heisman in 1986. Your senior season of high school, the Hurricanes won the national title. Was it just a fait accompli that you were going to go to Miami the whole time? I mean, what schools offered you, and what was the recruiting process like for you?
So, I was pre-stars and pre all that, the rankings and that. And no, I mean, to be honest, I wanted to go to Stanford because I was a good student. I knew what their degree was worth. I mean, I was making it more off academics than necessarily football, at least when the, letters and all the schools are sending me letters. So I think I went to football camp before my junior year at Miami, and the offensive coordinator, Gary Stevens, who was at Miami at the time, he goes, you need to go to camp where you want to go to school before your senior year. So I picked Stanford. I was there. Todd Marinovich, who was their, number one recruit out of the country, he was there in camp. Went to camp for a week, spent on campus. I thought I had a good camp. Played my season, got letters from, probably more correspondence, the old school letters from Stanford than any school.
Yeah.
And after the season, coach came to our, coach's office, and they're watching film and talking to the coaches, and basically said, you're not good enough to play here. We're not going to recruit you. We're not going to offer you a visit or a scholarship. So that was a little bit devastating. And then, a guy by the name of Dave Arnold, who was a tight ends coach at Washington State at the time, came early in the morning, gets me out of class, and I didn't even, recruiting. I had no idea how this operated. I mean, it's like I knew schools recruited you, and then you try to pick one, and hopefully they pay for your school. That's what I was like. Okay, I'm getting my school paid for, and I'm gonna have a chance to play football. Yeah. And Coach Arnold calls me out of the office, down to the coach's office, and he goes, we'd like to offer you a visit. And I was just like, fine. I didn't even know where Washington State was. I knew they were in the Pac-10, and that was kind of about it, And so he goes, great, you're our number one choice. And so I take a visit there. I was offered a visit. I took a visit to University of Washington and Miami. And when I took my trip to Washington, Mark Brunell had just committed, and Bjornsson, who ended up playing tight end for the Cowboys, had committed. So they had two quarterbacks before I even took my visit. So they didn't offer me. Washington State, great visit, albeit it was Pullman, Washington, and it was snowing. So coming from a guy from Northern California, hadn't played a game in the rain. That kind of concerned me. Snow was more for snow skiing than playing football games on.
Got to meet your future coach.
I did. So Coach got to meet Coach Erickson. I flew out of Pullman. I was the only player with the coaching staff on a small plane in a snowstorm. Flew to Spokane, and then they distributed, throughout the country recruiting or the West Coast. To recruit other players. So we take that flight, and I was scared to death. I could see out the front windshield, frozen windshield. Coach Erickson's in the front row across from me. We're talking. I get on the plane in Spokane to fly to Oakland back home, and there was a I can't even remember who it was. It was a coach in my row, and he was sitting next to me, and he goes, "So what do you think?" I said, "Oh, I had a great time." He goes, "So are you going to come here?" I go, well, I don't know. And he goes, "What did they offer you a scholarship?" And I said, I don't know. And he goes, "Well, what did you do?" And I said, "Rosenbaugh was my host. He was phenomenal." I said, "I went into Coach Erickson's office and we started watching game film. And he was like teaching me about the offense, how it operated this." As soon as I got into Pinole, Coach Arnold is on the phone basically yelling at Coach Erickson for not making it perfectly clear I was their quarterback recruit that they really wanted to sign. So I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "All right, I appreciate you clearing it up." And then Coach Erickson and Coach Arnold made a home visit. My dad was still alive. My mom and one of my brothers was there, and we talked about their offense and that and then it was great. I mean, they recruited me the hardest. I mean, it was like you're our guy, and I mean, seriously, had it been not for the climate concerned me as a quarterback. I mean, you want to throw the ball a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That was before, what was it back then? The CFA. So not a lot of games were on TV at the time.
That's true.
So you really didn't know. And then I took my visit to Miami, I think a couple weeks or a week after, to Miami after Washington State. They just, like you said, they just won the '87 national championship. It was the ticker tape parade weekend. So I don't know if we flew in on a Thursday from California, and it was your parents didn't come with you on visits when I came out of high school. It was like they only paid for the player.
Right.
So I fly in. It was like the football banquet, which is kind of the normal rubber chicken banquet, and but the ticker tape parade being there, and it was, I mean, me, Lamar Thomas, Michael Barrow, Darren Smith. There was probably 12 commits of our class were on that visit.
What a recruiting class!
Yeah, and I just remember I was probably, Chris, I wasn't 170 pounds, and I wasn't 6'2" yet.
Yep.
And I just said, man, if I don't get bigger, there's no way I'm going to get a chance to play. These guys are going to kill me. And I want to be part of this. I want to have a chance to win a national championship. And of all the schools that were recruiting me, that I was obviously my best option was there. And, Coach Stevens, I still remember, I mean, we're on my visit and he's like, he literally told me, he goes, "You should not come to school here." He goes, "You can start very early at one of the Pac-10 schools right now. You have that kind of ability. I've seen you since you're, 14 years old." He goes, "You have that ability." And I'm like, "Well, that's great, Coach, but, Stanford said I can't play there. Cal, not really recruiting me. UCLA already signed Rob Johnson, Brett's older brother."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Well, you can say that, but you need to go tell those coaches." I'm like, I get it. And I was like, I didn't care because I was like, you go in the office and it's like the last 4 quarterbacks on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And I said, if I get 1 year to start here, it's better than 4 years at some other school. And I wanted to win a championship. So that's kind of, how I got to Miami and didn't take the coach's advice not to come and went there and everything worked out. And then when Jimmy left in February, so one season with Coach Johnson, and then Dennis came in and I had several teammates and they're just like, "Man, I didn't come here to play for, Coach Erickson." And I'm like, Lamar Thomas was transferring. He's from Gainesville. He goes, "I'm going back to Florida." And I just said, "Listen, you need to go through the spring." And I said, he plays 3 wide receivers every single play. I go, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. And I go, if you're going to tell me you're not one of the top 4 guys right now, we're a true freshman, then go ahead. You need to transfer. Go to Gainesville. Go block for Emmitt Smith because that's what he was going to do.
Right.
And so I convinced him to stay in, and we had a little bit of success while we were here together.
I like the way you approach all that. Very logical, very sound reasoning. I wanted to ask you about the transition from Jimmy Johnson to Coach Erickson. What first, I know we touched on the recruiting, but what was it like to be recruited by Jimmy Johnson? And then, by the time you started your redshirt freshman year, you had a new coach with Dennis Erickson. What was the transition like for you as far as the coaching styles? And I know the offense, he brought the one back offense down. But what was like the biggest difference for you?
I think with Jimmy, because, I was just running the scout team, and he operated like a CEO, and it was, man, he had everything buttoned up from offense, defense, special teams. And it was the intensity of practice, the intensity of preparation, the psychology, I guess I'd say psychology now looking back, of somebody that could motivate and push all the right buttons of 100 different guys on our team. And it was like he instilled in us, like there wasn't a doubt in our mind when we ran out on the field. Like I was like a freshman, I'm like, man, we're kicking this team's butt. We didn't care who, and it was like, to be able to do that, he was amazing. And, it was like we prepared, I think, you look at what he did and then Dennis right after him. Like we were doing what Saban did now. We're doing what Kirby Smart is doing now. I mean, we did that at Miami already. Yeah. And he was kind of the first one. It was like, when you prepare, as hard as you possibly can and you put the time in, you will, win the game. And I'm sure there's other teams that may have had a little bit better talent than us, but, we always felt we worked harder than everybody. We felt we were more prepared than everybody, and I think with Coach Johnson is, I guess you learn life isn't fair. It's like, hey, you gotta produce, and that's in everything, in life, you got to produce, or you're not going to be there very long. And it was great. And then with Coach Erickson, he was more hands on. Obviously, he was not the offensive coordinator, but all of my meetings in 4.5 years were with him. He was my quarterback coach. And, to be able to meet with the head coach and you knew what he was thinking, what he wanted, and you're on the field was phenomenal. And so what he and Coach Bratkowski was our offensive coordinator, and later Coach Olson, they would kind of collaborate on the headphones, and then Coach Erickson was sending in the play. And it wasn't a, hey, I'm the one calling the plays, or, I'm going to blame him. I mean, I remember Dennis, and, probably the best lesson he ever taught us is be accountable. And be accountable to your teammates, be accountable, to everybody out here. And when you can be accountable yourselves, then, you're going to have a lot of success. And I think that, that's kind of what, his message was always, and the preparation side of it, he just kind of kept up from Jimmy. I mean, because I know he was like, wow, you guys practice hard. Initially when we got there, we kind of amazed him. And I mean, there was no let up though when he came in, and we started a one back offense, which now pretty much everybody's doing. And now the quarterback runs an RPO game off of it. So, it's I'd like to say probably reinvigorated the East Coast with some West Coast, passing game and one back offense and spread that we were kind of the first ones to do it. And it was just a match made in heaven. You took a bunch of fast dudes on offense and defense and said, don't think, play fast, and it'll all work out.
I wanted to ask you about something that I think Miami did, which was very unique. In a span of 8 seasons, 3 different national titles under 3 different coaches. And, Schnellenberger, Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson. And to me, that's such a interesting thing to happen. And usually what happens in college football is when a coach comes and he usually wins a title very early in his tenure, because he comes in and he revives the program and there's this spark. But over time, the shtick kind of gets old and either it's like Nick Saban and you're just like, you figured it out and keep motivated for that long period of time, or you tend to kind of fade out a bit. But it seems like Miami, the coaches didn't stay long enough for the shtick to wear off, right? So like people were still into the newness of the coach, and so a new coach would come in who was, and you guys had 3 incredible hires in a row too, 3 all timers in a row, and you were able to win 3 titles under 3 different coaches without really any rebuilding. It just seems such a rare thing to happen.
Well, and I think that was where I think Jimmy did it. I think Dennis did it, and Larry did it when they won in 2001. It's not about the coach.
Yeah.
Like 30 years, I'm what am I, 35 years out? It's about the guys you're in the locker room with. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I don't know. We were the team people loved to hate. We probably still are, Miami. People love to hate us. And we didn't really, I don't know if we cared. I think it galvanized us as players to where this is on us. It's, if we lost, we weren't blaming the head coach. It's on the players. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Jimmy, Dennis, Howard, and even Larry did was, this is about you. This is your team. And I think that when kids take ownership, that in 35 years, you're right. Like I get asked, it's like, were you ever under Jimmy? I mean, obviously the memory is like, hey, I remember this, but, so I think that we always had that feeling, kind of the us against the world. And it's on the players, let the coaches, coach us. I mean, I'm sure some of us were vocal and saying, it doesn't matter who the coach is. We're going to win a national championship. That's how the attitude that I came into. That's, I think that what those Jimmy did, Dennis did, they didn't change any of that. Mm-hmm. They weren't there. I think a lot of times if you look at, the game today and at any level where, if a coach comes in and he wants all the credit for doing this or, that's not going to work. The teams that are successful, the teams that come together on their own and own their season. And I think that's what I remember fondly about Miami is, we owned it. We didn't care, who they were going to hire. We were going to go out and win. And I think that, that's kind of probably how it happened. Yeah. We're doing, we didn't do what, we did what Saban do, but he's one coach and he's done it with a bunch of different assistants. Right. We had different head coaches, entirely different staffs of coaches, different schemes, same defense though. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It didn't matter which guy.
Defense is always good. Yeah.
It was the same defense.
Yep. You were a big-time contributor as a redshirt freshman to the '89 national title team. You had a school record 485 yards in one game. Was this when you realized, hey, I can play at this level? Was that just a huge confidence builder for you?
Yeah, there was no question. I think, I got thrown in second or third game. Craig Erickson broke his hand against Michigan State. We were on the road in East Lansing. They were top 10 team in the country. Came in. I was prepared. We ended up winning the game. Broke the school record for passing, I think, in my second start. My head might have got a little bit big back then because I was like, boy, I got this game whipped, and then I threw 4 picks against Florida State and then started one more, and then Craig came back healthy, so I ended up going back to the bench, which that was tough. I mean, it did give me confidence, and I tell people now, I mean, with the changes in transfer portal, I mean, if I wanted to transfer, I would have had to sit out a season or I had to drop a level in football or go to Division I AA. And obviously, I don't think I would have won the Heisman if I would have transferred. Would I have transferred now? I mean, it might have been easier to take a look at it because, when I look back, I was like, if you're going to transfer, you normally transfer to probably somebody that recruited you, that know that hey, I like that coach or I like that scheme or I've seen the school. well, where was I going to go? The other guy that offered me was actually my head coach in Dennis Erickson, and he was gone he wasn't at Washington State anymore.
Right.
So, I just like, man, I'm going to sit the bench for a whole nother year. And that's kind of how it worked out. And my thinking was, I got 2 years after Craig leaves. I got an opportunity every single year. We felt we were good enough to win a national championship. So I felt I'd have a chance to win multiple titles. And with success and you're the starting quarterback, maybe you get some personal awards and accolades. And that's kind of what happened. And that's, obviously it turned out.
It's funny, back then, there's no internet. And so if you're a fan of college football, I think we had like Street and Smith's magazine where he would tell you like who was on the team. But there's these schools like BYU and Miami was one of them where like there'd be this new quarterback that would pop up and everyone would be like, oh no, there's another. I remember when you had that start, this redshirt freshman, Gino Torretta, 485 yards. I remember thinking, oh God, they got another one. Jeez, where did they get these guys?
Yeah, it was, well, remember, USA Today printed the Friday, Saturday, Sunday paper. So your national coverage for college football was the Friday paper of the USA Today.
Right.
And if you didn't get it, you didn't really know. I'm like, what big games are there? And what are the rivalry games and that? And it's obviously totally changed, and it's a lot more success and hype around it. So
and when you were on the East Coast, if you wanted to get a West Coast score, you checked your sports section. Sometimes it would just say late.
Too late. Yes. Here's the final we had when we went to print in the second quarter.
Exactly. So going into that 1992 season, actually, let me back up. You were the starter as a junior. You guys went undefeated. Obviously, that was one of the great teams in college football history. Shared the national title with Washington. First of all, do you think you guys would have beaten Washington if you guys played on a neutral field?
No question. I look at it. I mean, I'm sure they say the same. I mean, they're undefeated. We're undefeated. They played Nebraska. Our only multiple point was we both played Nebraska. We blew them out 22-0 in the Orange Bowl. Washington played them pretty well in Lincoln and beat them. Obviously, I'm a Miami Hurricane. We're pretty confident guys, and we're pretty confident that we would have had success. It's great now that it's gone to the BCS. It's gone to a playoff. Now it's going to expand to where you get literally everybody that's has a chance based on their roster to win is going to be in it. Going forward once they expand to 12 teams. I think that what they did with splitting was the only thing that they could have done.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it worked out as it did, because I remember after we beat Nebraska handily, I don't remember sleeping much that night. And I remember being with Coach Erickson. We were at some, the post-game party, and Coach Erickson, he was concerned. We were all concerned that, I think how it went, it was the coaches had us 1, Washington 2, and I think the press had Washington 1 and us 2. So it flipped, and until that final vote came in, you don't know because we were like, okay, we both won the bowl game, give them the AP and give us the coaches poll, and we split a title, because there was no way, we couldn't play. Yeah. And it was nothing against them. They're in a major conference. They went through undefeated, had a great team. We did the same and had a great team. And I think that, I'm glad that, it wasn't an issue like what was it, 94 Penn State, where they go undefeated and they don't get a share, or, things like that. And it's, those are things that when you're playing in a Power 5 conference, if you will, of now, and you go undefeated, that you beat everybody that they put in front of you, and you're a player, and you expect to win a championship. And I think that, I don't think it takes anything off of them calling themselves champions or us calling, us champions. I'm glad it worked out how it did, because that was the system at the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think, they have, people can win 2 gold medals in the Olympics. So I think it's kind of a similar thing. Going into the 1992 season, was winning the Heisman one of your goals?
No, winning. My goal when we started working out, probably 3 weeks in January after we had won the championship and beat Nebraska, was our goal was 30-0. And if we went undefeated, we would have been 30-0 in our last 30 games as my class. So that was our goal. And with team success comes individual accolades, and that's kind of how I looked at it. But it wasn't, there was no way I was winning anything unless we were winning games, and so that was kind of I let the other stuff kind of fall as it may, and just kind of go through the season and work hard, prepare. But it was to go undefeated again. Yeah.
Well, you were one of the Heisman frontrunners coming in, and so you must have had.
Well, I don't know about that, Chris. Well. I would totally combat you there, because there's one All-American team that I didn't make, and do you know what All-American team that was?
Was it the USA Today?
Playboy preseason All-American.
Oh my gosh!
And one of my
teammates,
get to go to the mansion. Rusty Medeiros, and that was back when Hefner had flew the whole teams back to do the photo shoot, and that was
nursing the grudge to this day.
Still hurts. So I give Shane Matthews grief all the time. You stole the preseason All-American nod.
Shane Matthews.
I don't think I was. I would have been considered a dark horse. I think Rick Meyer was one of the favorites at Notre Dame. He was coming off a good year. Obviously, it was Notre Dame, so you're going to have that success.
I mean, you were up there. I mean, you were in the conversation.
I mean, maybe in the top 10 guys. On the I was on the fringe looking in. Yeah, it wasn't. I just had to go out and play. It was a slow burn at the hype built, I guess, as the season progressed.
And then you guys, of course, did go undefeated in the regular season. Yet you got to 29 games. Was that a lot of pressure to keep that streak going?
It was, because then we also had, so we ended our regular season. So we won at home. We won 25 games in a row in the Orange Bowl when I was in college for my 5 years, which ended up being part of the 58 game win streak that still stands, home win streak.
Which Washington broke.
Washington did beat us after I left and broke the streak. So that, I don't know if it was pressure. You just knew about it.
Yeah.
And I think that, we had a close call. Arizona we beat them like 8-7, I think, in the Orange Bowl. Yep. Yeah. When people were like, oh, Arizona's not any good. And it's like, oh, okay, Teddy Brucey's in the Hall of Fame. I remember Ty Partons. I mean, they had some studs on defense. Tony
Bowie.
Yeah. Bowie, they had some studs. And they played well and almost beat us. And then, we did well. We did, obviously, went undefeated. So it was a great season. It wasn't easy. I would say probably wasn't as easy as our junior year. We lost a bunch of offensive linemen from my junior year to my senior year, and it wasn't as easy. Defensively, we had phenomenal defense. I don't think our defense gave up. I think it was less than 10 points both seasons, my 91 and 92 teams.
Yeah. But there had to be a point in the season where you thought, I just might win this Heisman thing?
You never know. I think as the interview requests increased, it was being at Miami was great because we were prepared like an NFL team to deal with the media. And I think, when I got there, Steve Walsh, was there, won a national championship, was probably top. I know he was top 10 for the Heisman, his junior year. Testaverde had won the Heisman in 86. And it was great. I mean, we had to stand up in front of a podium every Tuesday and deal with the media. That local media turned into national media. some of my good friends, John Ruth, who was the ibis at the time, and Joe Slater. They had boats, and Chris Fowler. This was pre-game day. I don't even think game day went on the road back then.
Was that the ibis that got momentarily detained by the
John
police?
did get arrested or momentarily detained in Tallahassee for shooting off the smoke in a fire extinguisher before our game. But Chris Fowler comes down to do a national interview. Next thing I know, it's me and Chris on the back of a nice big yacht riding around in Biscayne Bay, and I turn behind me, and John Roos in the ibis outfit. Joe's driving him. John's got a fishing pole and a sign he had made. I mean, this guy should be in the mascot Hall of Fame because he had made a sign. Got it printed at wherever. It said Torretta for Heisman, and like he was fishing, behind us, and they were just driving back and forth with the camera. So it was just kind of, I would say as those interviews became more national, then there became more pressure. Was okay, keep winning, and you might have an opportunity to do it, but at no point, you remember things that were said. I mean, we played Arizona, Penn State, Florida State, 3 back-to-back games. And, I don't know who said if it was Corso at the time, if it was Edwin Pope, our Hall of Fame writer at the Herald. And it was like, if he wins those 3 in a row, he's got a good chance of winning the Heisman Trophy. And you're like, okay, whatever. But you don't know. I mean, Marshall ended up being a runner-up to me. I mean, if he rips off a 300-yard game at any point in those games, and it's totally changed. I mean, look at this year. I mean, it's the front runners have flipped every single week. I mean, there've been amazing performances, which has been phenomenal. And when people always ask me, it's like, who do you vote for the Heisman? And I literally tell them, how hard it is to vote for the Heisman. You get 3 blank lines, and you have to pick them. And I go, you pick 3. You tell me 3. And people just, they freeze.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Because they're like, well, yeah. I go, yeah, okay, that's why it's hard. You know what I mean? You could make a case for the guy at 3 to be 1 on any ballot. You can make a guy at 10 to be 3. It's like, it's very hard to make that determination. So you have to come up with your, how you're going to vote. You don't just put down somebody's name because you think they're going to win or somebody else is doing it. You do it how you want to do it.
Yeah. So what was your trip to New York City like, and who were some of the Heisman winners that you were excited to meet?
Well, I was in Louisville, Kentucky the night before, and I believe at midnight I was told, well, this was when Johnny Unitas was still alive, won the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Senior Quarterback Award, and we were at a banquet. And I was told at midnight, you are not making it to New York. There's a major ice storm in the city. All the airports are shut down. NBC, who was doing the telecast at the time, you're going into a Louisville studio to tape it live. And then if you win, we'll figure out a way to get to New York and go from there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I went to sleep. I think, I don't know, it might have been 3, 4 in the morning. My mom, is in the next room. She wakes me up and she's like, come on, we got to go. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, they're going to fly. I think they flew me and my mom. I'm not sure if my brothers flew, if we all flew together or different flights. But they're going, Newark is open and we got to get on the first flight. I'm like, okay. So it was, obviously a 6 a.m. flight. It was back before the pre-NIL days. So you're flying commercial. You're not flying private jets of all over the world. So get on a plane, land in New York or land in Newark, get in the car. Jack the limo driver, who's since passed, who's, great. He picks us up. We're driving in the city and he's telling us, about the ice storm. And I mean, I'm telling you, when we went through the Holland Tunnel on that side, on the west side, we come into the city, there had to be 6 inches of ice, like just all over cars. Like I had never seen. I mean, I've obviously snow ski and all that sort of thing, but
Sure.
had never, I was like, what is an ice storm? What is that? What does that look like? And so you see it and I'm like, this is crazy. And get to the old downtown athletic club. And I don't know how much time I had. I know it wasn't a lot of time. But they checked me into one of the rooms and I'm like, do I have enough time to shower? So I run upstairs, go upstairs, take a shower. Old building in New York after ice storm. That meant cold water. No, the hot water didn't work. And I mean, it was, when it's so cold, you were just kind of running back and forth past it,
Right.
just to try to get the soap off, and then make it, rush downstairs, go to the 13th floor, the Heisman floor, and Marshall and Garrison were already there. Like, it was probably 200. I don't even know if there was 200 people back then. It wasn't a lot, but the floor could fit. We're all set up. TV broadcast is set up. Sit down. We start talking, and it was the Bills-Dolphins playoff game, or was it playoff or regular season for a playoff.
Probably regular season at that point.
And it went overtime.
Oh, geez. So
we're sitting there watching Jim Kelly and Marino battle it out. It's in Buffalo. They're snowing like heck there. And we're sitting there and waiting for the game to go overtime, because back then it was, okay, it's not, you don't have your own channel. You're waiting on NBC to open and start the broadcast. So that was a little bit hectic. In the USA Today, the day before, I don't know who wrote the article. It said Torretta's a favorite to win. That's kind of all I saw coming in. I wrote some notes, on a piece of paper for a speech in case I did win. And I remember sitting next to Garrison. I was sitting next to Garrison. I was at the end, and Marshall was on the other side. And Garrison, I remember him asking me, he's like, "Well, what are you doing after this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I barely made it. I just came in from Louisville. I don't even know what happens here." And I said, well, what if you win? And he goes, I can't remember what he said. And I said, I prepared a speech just in case. And I think he was then he was nervous. He's like, uh-oh, maybe I should have prepared a speech in case I win. And, and then kind of would go through it. And O.J. Simpson was one of the hosts on NBC, and, he was doing the interviews with us. He might have been partial to the running backs.
Right.
I think he was biased towards.
I can see that.
He might have been biased towards Marshall and Garrison, but and then it was. I mean, when they said my name, and I went up there, and I remember my mom screaming. I said a few words, said a few thank yous, and then it was. I mean, it was a war with 5 days of a whirlwind from there. It was, come on, we're going up to a different floor. We're going to the 12th floor where the gym was in the DAC. All the national press is there, and then you're just firing. You're firing back questions, answers, and I don't think Linda, our sports information director, had made it yet because of the ice storm. So it was like everybody was taking different flights into the city. I know Coach Erickson was not there. He wasn't there until I think Sunday or Monday when he came in. So it was just kind of, it was
sounds chaotic.
Crazy. Yeah, it was crazy time.
Yeah. Oh, how did winning the Heisman change your life?
Wow. Well, how hasn't it? I mean, you know what I mean? It's hard. It's like you win. I was 22. I mean, I was 22. I was a college football player. I was kind of how it was, and then at 22, you become a historic college football player, and everybody knows you as the '92 Heisman Trophy winner, and I think that that's it. It's part of who you are, and I think you tell every winner from that day forward, you'll always be remembered as the Heisman Trophy winner, and even Dorsett, even these guys that are NFL Hall of Famers. I mean, the first thing they always say is Heisman Trophy winner.
Yep.
And and that's a something that's with you, and I think that it gives you tremendous opportunity to do a lot of good things in the rest of your life, but it also brings attention, and you have to be mindful of that as you go through your life, and then you become, you're part of another family. I mean, you become good friends and family with other winners as we continue to go back to New York and welcome a new fraternity member in every single year. So it's a nice brotherhood, if you will. Changes your life. You get a whole another family, and it's a pretty good one.
Gives me chills just thinking about it. After the NFL, you went into a career as a financial advisor, and you're covering college football on the radio for Touchdown Radio and Sirius XM and others. What do you think about the state of college football these days?
Well, I think there are a lot of good things, but I think there are a lot of things that could be addressed. And I testified in Congress, last month, and gave my 2 cents. Would I have stayed at Miami with NIL and transfer portal now? I don't know, but I don't think I would have enjoyed the success that I ended up having by sticking it out. And hey, grass isn't greener always on the other side. So I think that those things, that the transfer portal. I think one thing that coming from the West Coast and growing up in the Bay Area, I made a choice to come to Miami, and I knew that was going to be tough. I knew I would play in front of my family if they came to the games, which is, going to be very hard. And fortunately, my family, could afford to, my mom could afford to fly to the games and on the East Coast. But I look at what has currently transpired with the conferences, and you're essentially rendering, I would say, college athletics on the West Coast non-existent, because you got SC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, Cal and Stanford are coming here to the ACC. And I think about the kid that, maybe isn't as fortunate as me and wanted to play at Cal, but he wants to be able to play in front of his family and friends essentially his whole season, because you could take an hour flight, you can drive 5 hours down to LA, you get to see UCLA, you get to the SC game, take an hour flight up north, you go see Washington, you go see, Washington State, you go to Oregon, you're there. You go to Salt Lake is an easy trip from the Bay Area. Well, what if you're not that fortunate? These parents and family members, maybe it's your grandparents, they can't, I mean, they're going to have to fly any away game that they play in, besides the 5 or 6 home games, is 3,000 miles away, basically. I mean, it's it's for sure one flight, probably 2, and I think that I don't agree with that. As far as how you fix that, I think there's obviously a lot of money that is going around in the conferences that something needs to be figured out. And I just think of how college football doesn't have a commissioner or some type of, governing body that has teeth, because the NC2A is afraid of, I think they're afraid of being sued because they haven't had a lot of success in court based on NIL and all these other things that they, kind of suppressed for years. And like, to me, it's, if you have a Power 5, which, okay, it's a Power 5, how the games aren't structured with some kind of geography in mind. And what I mean by that is why there isn't a college football West Coast, college football East Coast, college football Midwest, college football Southwest. Similar to the NFL, somebody schedules, you guys all play each other. The end of the year, top 12 teams are going to make the playoffs, but you can keep, Cal and USC as a rivalry. You can keep, listen, Miami's going to start playing Cal, which would have been, that'd have been great when I was in school. At least I'd have got some trips out to Northern California to see my family and play in front of them. And
exotic matchups, to be sure.
It's the battle of the GPAs between Duke and Stanford in any sport. So that's where I just think that there are certain things that they could do that I believe would help, because to me, the success of college football, a lot of it is the regional rivalries. I mean, I just broadcast Texas TCU isn't going to happen. Bedlam isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, these are games. I mean, and they already did it kind of with Nebraska leaving the Big 12 prior. You know, Texas and Nebraska, Oklahoma, Nebraska, they don't play anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, you ask Johnny Rogers, ask those guys, ask Mike Rozier, I mean, those are their biggest games.
Yeah.
To not have that regional rivalry where it's, I mean, you know, you're barely across the state border. And those are things that I unfortunately are just getting left on the wayside. And I don't agree with it. And I just, to me, is I think there's enough money there to figure something out to say, here are the teams we got. How do we structure them? Keep some kind of semblance of you know, these rivalry games. Have some kind of scheduling. Maybe the Big Ten, you know, plays the Pac-10, and you know the ACC plays the SEC, and you're mixing that in, and now you have an expanded 12-team playoff, and you're going to get that exposure. But
yeah.
I feel sad for the people of the West Coast, and I would, even if I was a high school kid. I mean, if you think about it,
yeah,
you know, maybe he wanted to go play in the East Coast. Okay, fine. Now, if he wants to play on the West Coast, which is fine, he's still going to end up playing on the East Coast,
right?
You know, and that's somebody from the West Coast that came to the East Coast and stayed. But I made that choice, and they're not given a choice to stay home, because a lot of guys, where they go to college is based on where they live or where they grew up geographically. And I think that how it's currently constructed, you're not giving those kids on the West Coast that option. And to me, I'm sad for that. There's a lot of rivalry games that have a ton of history that I think that they're just going by the wayside, and I'm disappointed in that.
Well, if I had a vote for commissioner of college football, I think I would give it to you, Gino.
Well,
I think you make
so
a great
hopefully they do something. I don't know how it will transpire, but I think that you know, it's like when you have kids, at some point in time, somebody's got to be an adult and teach them.
Well, it's good that someone who's played it and has had great success cares about it enough to think about these things. So that's good. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do close things out with just a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Because at the end of the season, we're going to do a clip show. I ask all the Heisman winners who've come on the show. Okay. One, what's your favorite Heisman moment by someone else?
Oh, wow. I would say this. I broadcast the Arkansas at Texas A&M game, and I remember saying in the game, I think Manziel had almost 600 yards of offense, and this was early, and I just said, we might have seen a Heisman Trophy winner today and don't even know it. And that was just, it was just a jaw-dropping performance for 60 minutes.
All right. Where do you keep your Heisman Trophy?
It is upstairs in the bookcase.
Okay.
Lend it out on occasion to our Hall of Fame when the University of Miami asked for it.
Okay. What Heisman winner were you most excited to meet?
Oh, God. You know, I don't. All of them have been so great. Maybe Jay Berwanger. He was the first one. He was still alive when I won. But you don't. I mean, as a kid, you know, at 22, I didn't know the history. I knew that you know the award. Yeah. But you really don't know, you know, kind of the history of guys that won it. My favorite story, you know, is that we would go down on the third floor in the grill in the DAC, and I remember going down there by myself, and I remember Hopalong Cassidy, Johnny Latner, Jay Berwanger, and Joe Bellino are all sitting at a table. I sat by myself, and they're like, no, sit over here. And I remember sitting down, listening to their stories. You know, I remember asking Joe Bellino, well, Joe, what'd you do after you won the Heisman? And he goes, well, I was sent to Vietnam. That's what I did. You know, and I was just, you know what I mean? It's just like your eyes pop out of your head because the history of the award and the stories of the winners, especially the older guys that I got a chance to meet that have passed on, that's I mean, it's second to none. Yeah, the DAC was the real Heisman house back in the day. Okay, describe to me your
kind of like signature play as a Heisman winner?
I don't know if it's a signature play. It was win. I knew, I do whatever it takes to win. And I think, I'm always appreciative. I think after wide right 2, when we beat Florida State my senior year, and Coach Bowden just said, I could sum this game up in one word, and it was Torretta. He was great.
Awesome. Who's the greatest Heisman Trophy winner of them all?
Wow. Wow, so many great options, but don't you just have to go with Archie since he did it twice? I mean, having seen guys for the last 20-some years broadcasting, just an awe to be in a fraternity with them. I mean, Cam Newton, the size, and, guys couldn't tackle him. Bo Jackson, the speed. Herschel, the speed. Rozier and Johnny, the special teams. Dorsett, Staubach, Testaverde running around at Miami. Ty Detmer lighting us up at the start of the 90 season, and he wrapped up the Heisman in week 1.
Yep.
I've seen so many great performances, and seeing those guys, I would probably say, even Tim Brown. I mean, obviously a special teamer. Desmond. I mean, they basically did it off special teams and others. So I don't know if I could say one, but I'd say Archie because he's got 2 nice bronze trophies.
Well, that's a very popular pick. It's either him or Barry Sanders that we get a lot of.
No, and I forgot Barry, but I played with him with the Lions, and the greatest thing about Barry, we would watch game film on Mondays in Detroit, and every single offensive play Barry got the ball, it was nice run, Barry, and he would just be like, thanks. Nice run, Barry. I mean, like 5 guys on defense would touch him. Nobody could tackle him. Nice run, Barry. Okay, thanks.
If you could give the Heisman out to someone who didn't win the award, like an extra Heisman to someone, who would that be?
Oh, my God. Wow. Players that I thought guys that, like McCaffrey, I thought was right there.
I mean, you're not taking a Heisman away from anyone necessarily by doing this. You're just saying that this guy, was Heisman worthy.
Huh. Oh man, there's a lot. Deshaun Watson, McCaffrey, heck, my runner-up, Marshall, was phenomenal. He got hurt at the end of the year. Yeah. I think there's so many great guys. I think I get a kick out of Hugh Green and Jim McMahon always give George Rogers grief. You stole my Heisman. I don't know. That's a tough one because I would say that there's probably a lot of runner-ups that are very deserving as well.
Mm-hmm. Who's the toughest player you ever played against and why?
Toughest player ever played against. Wow. In college, I think some of the great performances defensively I've seen, Mark D'Onofrio, linebacker at Penn State, had one arm tied to his side and made about 15 tackles on us. Mm-hmm. Marvin Jones at Florida State was just a beast. I guess I'd have to go with those couple guys. Besides, I mean, I can't pick my teammates because they're the toughest ones when I used to have to practice against them every single day.
Now, I asked this question of Archie and Ricky Williams, and they, it was about the strangest place you've ever been recognized as a Heisman winner. Archie was in a play in England, and Ricky Williams was in, I think, the Familia Sagrada in the church in Barcelona, and he got called out. Have you ever been somewhere and someone said, "Hey, didn't you win the Heisman Trophy?"
Bulldog Cafe in Amsterdam. and I will say we were there. I was there playing in the World League. I think it was our first game. I played for Dusseldorf out of Germany. Mm-hmm. Back when they were trying to bring the before it was even called. It was called World League still. It wasn't even called NFL Europe at the time, but it was still NFL and NFL backed. And I remember we just walking around seeing Amsterdam, and we're in the Bulldog, and sitting there, and this couple sitting next to me was like, they kind of look at me and they're like, it started with, "Aren't you Gino Torretta? Don't you play for the Vikings?" And I was just like, wow, this is kind of, all right, yeah. They're like, "You won the Heisman Trophy, right?" And I was just like, yeah. So I guess farthest away from home for sure. That's
a good one. That's a good one. But finally, what would you be doing if you never played college football?
If I never played college football, well, hopefully I would have had a long, successful career playing baseball of some sort. But that's what I would say. My wife always tells me I should have been an engineer. So maybe I'd be an engineer.
Well, hey, you were in the Bay Area, so not too far from where all the action is.
Yeah. That's what I say. I say, if Stanford would have recruited me, my roommate could have invented Google, and I wouldn't be working.
Gino Torretta, thanks for coming on the show. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And we wish you the best of health going forward. And we'll probably see you in New York, I imagine, coming up in December.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, Chris.
Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Barry Sanders, the 1988 Heisman Trophy winner, and you are listening to the official Heisman Trophy Podcast.
Hey college football fans, tickets to the 2023 Heisman Trophy Dinner Gala are now on sale. The event takes place in New York City on Sunday, December 10th, the day after the Heisman Trophy ceremony. The guest of honor for the gala is the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner, as well as the 50th anniversary winner John Cappelletti, the 25th anniversary winner Ricky Williams, and the 10th anniversary winner Jameis Winston. Plus, we'll also be honoring the 2023 Heisman Humanitarian Award winner. Just go to Heisman.com to purchase tickets and witness Heisman history. Take an even deeper dive into Heisman lore by going to Heisman.com, home to all things Heisman, including news, bios, and the latest on all the winners, plus updates on the Heisman Trophy Trust and its charitable mission. It's the A to Z for everything Heisman, from Alan Amici to Danny Werfel. We really need a Heisman winner whose name begins with Z. We're going to close out this week's episode with our next guest. He is one of the great American sportscasters in the modern era. From 2007 until 2023, he was the co-anchor of the West Coast edition of SportsCenter, alongside Stan Verrett. He was born in Portland, Oregon, raised in Spokane, definitely a child of the Pacific Northwest. Right now, he is working with the Portland Trail Blazers, and he will be hosting the Heisman Trophy Dinner Gala on Sunday, December 10th. So it will be great to have him to introduce the new Heisman Trophy winner, and we're excited to have him on the show today. Neil Everett, sportscaster extraordinaire, thanks for coming on the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
I'm living the dream.
You're going to host the Heisman Gala on Sunday, December 10th in New York City at the Marriott Marquis. How did it come about that you're the man this year?
I thought I was getting punked when I got the phone call. What a terrific honor. My thanks to Rob Whalen and his group for penciling me in. Just tremendous. I mean, it came out of left field. I know this is football, but this came out of left field. Rob called up, asked if I was available. I immediately ran to my little calendar and made sure I was available. This is beyond enormous in my playbook. This would go to the top of my resume.
Fantastic. The gala is very different from the ceremony itself, a bit more majestic, I'd say. Kind of has its own tradition. We talked earlier in the year with the great Don Criqui, whose footsteps you will be following in. He was a longtime host. Have you ever been to the gala?
I have been. I've been to the Heisman the whole weekend in 2007 when Baker Mayfield was that 2017?
17, yeah.
He's not that old. When Baker Mayfield won, so I was able to go to the room where all the dudes are just hanging out. I went to the event itself and had great seats, and then I went to the dinner. They honored Ernie Els, who was such a great dude, and Reese Davis was the host that evening.
That's right. How do you go about preparing for an event like this?
Well, I think you can get, if I get too deep into it, if I go too into a rabbit hole of Heisman stuff, I'm gonna freak out. So I think it's everybody's there to have a good time, a dignified good time, and I think you just set the tone by being dignified, but being funny, but not too funny.
Right.
I think just. Like to be honest with you, I'm going to be like, I'm just hoping I don't Beavis and Butthead it. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to see all these guys that I've looked up to my whole life, and just to be in the same room with them is quite a thrill.
Luckily, there's a nice selection of wine that's served at the event, so generally the speakers get funnier as the night goes on. Being a University of Oregon alum, are you holding out hope that you might get a chance to introduce Bo Nix as the next Heisman winner?
Well, he's right there. He's Nix is in the mix. That's for sure. Yeah, that'd be something else. It's been nearly 10 years since Marcus Mariota won it, and we all remember his acceptance speech was one of the greatest ones ever. And he was, Bo Nix is having a Heisman worthy season. But only one guy can walk away with that trophy. It's the exclusivity of the club is what makes it so special.
You worked in sports information at Hawaii Pacific University, so you know what it's like working in college athletics. What do you think of schools that promote their players for awards like the Heisman? And do you think that kind of stuff is effective? And what kind of messaging do you think works best?
Wow. I don't know that I don't think it's ineffective, but the bottom line is it's what you do on Saturdays on the football field. So you can put up whatever media presentations you want, and I would think it comes down to the eye test on the football field more than the eye test on promotional material. But heck yeah, if I was a school that had a kid that was in the mix, I'd be all in 24/7 on pushing his name. It's not only does the kid win, the young man win, but the school wins, and it wins forever.
Right.
You become, Mariota won. That was a huge deal for the University of Oregon, and still is.
Yeah. What do you think of this year's Heisman race?
Well, I mean, listen, I went to Oregon. Okay. So I'm not supposed to be in awe of anybody from the UW. But Michael Penix, there's something, Chris, about when it comes out of a left-hander's hand, it's just Kenny Stabler or whoever Tebow, whoever lefties, there's something sexy about that coming out of the left-hander's hand. But I think, it looks to me like, it's Penix and Nix and Jaden Daniels are probably your top three, but Harrison at Ohio State is, anything that's thrown into his vicinity, he seems to catch. The Michigan quarterbacks had a great year. The Florida State quarterback was having a great year until he had the injury. So there's a lot of worthy candidates, and the men and women who vote, I think they're usually on it. I don't think anybody's jumped up and down and said, my God, they got that one completely wrong.
Right. Are you a Heisman voter yourself?
I have been, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite Heisman memories and some of the favorite guys you voted for in the past?
Well, I haven't been one for very long, so I've only had a couple years where I voted. I think somebody dropped out on the West Coast, and they were kind enough to include me. But I'll tell you the great story, Chris, is I got introduced to the Heisman in about, I think it was about 2007, maybe. It was we did a deal in New York for ESPN, and Heisman was looking for somebody at Nissan, and Heisman were looking for somebody to host a weekly event at college football games throughout the country. And for some reason, they picked me. And so for the next 6-7 years, I got to travel across the country, go to all these different venues on Saturdays, and we'd have what they call the Nissan Heisman House. And and then some, if we were in Oklahoma, or if we were in Oklahoma State, Barry Sanders would show up. And all of a sudden now I'm sitting here talking to Barry Sanders about winning the Heisman. He tells a story about how he was in Japan when he was awarded the Heisman because the Cowboys were playing there. But
Right.
I did this for a number of years. I was counting. I think I met 45 Heisman Trophy winners doing this gig. And so and every time I'm just like, wow, I'm with Herschel Walker. I remember I saw Eric Dickerson in LA at something and we were talking and I said, he said, hey, tell Herschel he's got my Heisman. So the next time I saw Herschel, I said, hey, I saw Eric Dickerson. He said, you have his Heisman. And Herschel looked at me and goes, well, tell Eric he can come fight me for it if he wants. So just stuff like that. I mean, George Rogers. He's always in it. Mike Rozier. He's the coolest dude in the room.
What a character, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all these guys, and to sit around and be backstage and talk to them, and Desmond with the should be selling toothpaste. He's got the greatest smile on television. So they're all memories that are just like, you know what it is? I feel like I'm living outside my body when I see myself in those situations. I'm like, wow, I'm with this Heisman guy. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Did you find yourself following the Heisman race more since you've been involved with the Heisman and getting a Heisman vote?
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. But again, you don't, like I was reading an article just this morning and it was like, well, according to this guy's formula, one of the three that I mentioned is heads and tails above the other two. And it was surprising to me. But I saw where his logic was. And it was interesting, and there's all those websites out there that say, this is who's going to win or this is who's going to win. But
that used to be me. I used to have one of those websites.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Before I started, before the Heisman reeled me in, I was Heisman pundit.
Oh, okay. Well, I probably used that on a Sports Center lead at one time.
Yeah. Did you have any favorite winners growing up? What was your earliest exposure to the Heisman?
Ooh. I want to say like Jim Plunkett. Man, I'm 61, so I go back a ways with the Heisman. And just growing up on the West Coast, I grew up in Eastern Washington, so it was Pac-8 football was the big deal back then. I remember throwing Samoan, who didn't win the Heisman, but him being
Jack Thompson.
Him being in the conversation. And I listened to Coug games on my little portable radio or in the car when Pops was driving wherever we were going. So I think it was funny. We were doing the Heisman commercial at the Heisman House, the one that runs, the folks out there, the one that runs on game days and all that.
Yeah.
And so they had a big room where all the guys who were filming, all former Heisman winners, were in this room. And I walked in and I look and I'm like, okay, there's Ricky Williams, there's Johnny Rodgers. And then I look in the back and I go, oh, there's Jim Plunkett, who I'd never met. And I kind of look and we made eye contact. And Jim Plunkett goes, hey, Neil, how you doing? And I'm like, oh my God, Jim Plunkett knows who I am. And so it was super cool.
What a great feeling.
Oh yeah. And I mean, that's how I'm going to be, that's how I'm going to be when I meet 90, even the guys I've already met. Just to be in that room, and it's a room of greatness, and then I'm there.
Yeah. Well, you're a Pacific Northwest guy at heart, obviously. What do you think about these great years that both Washington and Oregon are having in the last year of the Pac-12 and the demise of the conference itself?
Yeah, that's like a death in the family. It really is. My grandpa played for the Ducks in the 1920 Rose Bowl. So, so it's really in my DNA, this whole West Coast football thing. I'm sorry that it came to that. It was screwed up by people a lot smarter than me. So, it's just it's unfortunate. But hey, listen, change is inevitable, and I think years from now we'll look back. I think probably the football part of it's going to change, but I would imagine the rest of the sports are going to have to bounce back to regional rivalries at some point, because for economic sense and for the good of the athlete.
And I know you've been to the ceremony and the gala before, but what are you looking forward to the most when you get up there on that dais with all those winners?
Well, I'll tell you what, I guess I'm looking forward, because I assume that he'll be there, is shaking Bo Nix's hand and thanking him for what he's done for the university, because, it's the only sport in town in Eugene, and what he's done and what Dan Lanning's done, to be able to thank them personally for all the entertainment, and that they brought not only me, but all my buddies who went to Oregon. It's a glue that keeps a community together, and not just the community in Eugene, but the community of Eugene, of which I am part of that, having gone to school there. So, and then taking a look at all the guys who are there, and just like saying to my wife, "That's Mike Rozier. That's it. That's Barry Sanders." So, listen, when you're in a room of greatness, how can you not absorb it, and just the mana, the aura of it, and just bathe in it.
Right. Well, I'm sure it's going to be a great event, and we look forward to seeing you out there. Neil Everett, thanks for coming on the official Heisman Trophy podcast. We look forward to catching up with you when you get out to New York.
Started living a dream, still living the dream.
Thanks, Neil.
Hey, man, appreciate you.
And that'll do it for this week's show. Be sure to check back next week when we will at some point have all 4 Heisman Trophy finalists on the show. We're not sure yet on the timing. And we're also going to tell some great stories about the Heisman Trophy ceremony itself, its speeches, and all the traditions. Enjoy the big conference title matchups this weekend. We're about to find out who's going to be the next Heisman Trophy winner. Very exciting. The official Heisman Trophy podcast streams every Wednesday during the college football season and is hosted, co-produced, edited, and engineered by Chris Houston. Paul Goldberg is the executive producer and editor. Special shout out to Isaac Lowenkron, and big thanks to the Heisman Trophy Trust and its executive director Rob Whalen and associate director Tim Henning. The official Heisman Trophy podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find clips of our show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just go to @Heisman Trophy.